here with George Bagley, and George is an electronics engineer, and he's spent quite a lot of time building his own optical equipment to observe the skies. So we're going to go through some of the equipment now. He's going to explain what he's been doing over recent years in order to track the sky during daytime. Now, George, just tell us why did you decide to use your electronics expertise to build all of this optical equipment?
Well, I felt I needed the answers to the ET UFO phenomenon. I wasn't going to find them by someone coming with the evidence, so I needed to look for it myself. And
right.
I built the equipment to do that.
And you've been interested in the UFO phenomenon for some...
Yes, long time. Yeah.
Right, and you haven't actually observed the skies at the address where you are now. Tell us where you've done your observations from, because you've just moved, yeah?
Yes, I moved from Albrighton, Shropshire, which is about a mile and a half from Cosford, the air base.
Yeah.
And mainly from the back garden there, which had clear skies.
Yeah. All right, and for a living you've fixed TVs for many years.
That's correct.
So you know a lot about electronics. Okay.
Yes, yes. So
we're going to look at some of the equipment now that that we've got on the table here, and then after that we're going to look at some footage that George has managed to capture. Right, so just start us off. What was the first piece of kit that you started with, George?
Well, it was this night vision scope made from an ex-military image intensifier tube. At the one end, zoom lens. At the other end, a bullet camera to capture the video. That gave quite good results.
There's 4 different types of category in these optics, isn't there?
That's correct. This is a first generation image intensifier.
Second generation, what's the difference with that?
Well, you do get clearer images as you go up through the generations, but we can't get that kind of equipment in this country.
So third generation and fourth generation are
military grade.
They're military and they're illegal.
In this country they're illegal.
Right, but you can get 1 and 2, and this is the first generation. So it's not actually looking at infrared or ultraviolet, this device, it's intensifying the image in the visible spectrum, is that right?
That's right, and it's meant for nighttime captures.
Right, and you've also got a video output on this, yeah?
That's right, via the bullet camera at the eyepiece end there.
So how does that interface to your video equipment? Is there an interface?
There's a video capture card that connects to the computer. Video is captured that way.
Right, and where is the port on the system?
That will be at this end.
All right, I see.
The lead is not plugged in at the moment.
So it actually goes, it plugs into there.
That's correct.
Right, all right. What did you acquire next?
Well, next I moved on to this one because it was lightweight, another night vision scope.
You got this at
Lidl's.
at Lidl's. George bought this at Lidl's.
It was about £120 at the time, but then probably a lot more now. And this one did have the advantage of being lightweight and a video output socket for recording.
Do you want to just show me the front lens?
There.
Yeah, okay.
So it's 5 times magnification and a 50mm lens. And
again, it's not infrared or ultraviolet. All it's doing is it's intensifying what's available in the visible spectrum.
Yes, again for nighttime shots. It gives good results. Not as good as that one, but good enough.
Right, all right. And what have you got for us next?
Then I moved on to daytime video using infrared.
Right.
And this is the Sony camera that I acquired for that because it has night shot feature on there. So that needs to be turned on and an infrared filter fitted to the front. Because
some video cameras, they actually are recording infrared and visible light, although you probably don't know it.
That's right.
And what you're doing there is you're trying to filter out the visible light with that filter. Can you take the filter off, George?
They do screw off there on the front. So they're stacked together there, so back to the
So it's a normal camera with night shot facility.
Yes.
And just to stress, you're using these cameras to film during the day, you're not filming at night.
That's correct. It's not possible to film at night in infrared, you just get black screens.
Right.
Yes.
Alright, and what have you got for us next?
Well, from there, because that's a standard definition one, I did then go on to high definition security camera made by Samsung. I haven't fully tested this one yet, but I've heard people say they get good results from that.
And this again is an infrared.
Infrared, yes. I've concentrated mainly on infrared after that because I was getting better results.
Just fill us in what this device is for here.
This is a Sony stills camera that has night shot also, and the capability of recording video footage. Again, it's one I've acquired recently, second-hand, and I haven't fully tested that one. I'm hoping to get high definition pictures from that.
So what you've done then, you've put these cameras in your garden on a tripod which has got some quite sophisticated motors on it, so you can pan and tilt and look at different portions of the sky. And you're actually running the video cables into your house, so you can actually sit and look at them on a screen when you've got all the kit in the garden. But if you wanted to go outside or to a remote location and view what's been filmed, you've got a little screen down here.
Yes,
just show us that, George.
This is an outdoor monitor screen with high brightness. And with a sun hood on there to cut down on reflections. And
also, if you want to go out on site, you've got this unit here, which just turn that around for us, George. It's just probably something you'd buy at Halfords, is it?
Yes, it's a portable power supply and charger, but 12 volt output. So that's enough to power this equipment for about 8 hours.
Right. So as I say, you've got your cables which can run your video signals and power from the house, and you're mounting them. Well, we can see there you've got a pan and tilt unit there.
These are all homemade pan and tilt mechanisms because they needed to be very, very slow and fine adjustment. Well, with night vision, I would be monitoring the video live and adjusting the pan and tilt. So I could pan with any object that comes into screen.
Right.
During the daytime, I use automatic pan and tilt.
Right, so we're just in George's living room, and he's got these pan and tilt mechanisms, which he's just going to show us that he uses to track the sky with his cameras. So away you go, George.
Well, this one looks a bit Heath Robinson with bits of Meccano on there, but this one's automatic, so that you can set the dials for timer intervals where the camera will move for a set period of time, stay there for another set period of time, and then move on. It can rotate 270 degrees and then reverse and go back the other way. That can be left unattended for 8 hours and it will video quite happily.
Right.
Without any adjustment at all.
Right.
Whereas this one, this is a 360 degree rotating pan and tilt mechanism.
You built this all yourself? Yeah?
I have, yes. And this is controlled via this control box.
Right.
So you have speed controls for the pan and tilt motors and directional switches. So you can reverse the direction.
So do you want to give us a demonstration?
So this is the tilt mechanism. You can adjust the speed to almost
Let me get a shot from the side so we can see it tilting there now. So just adjust it then, George. And you can go down really slow there, yeah?
Or very fast. It does have a limit switch, so it will reverse the motor automatically once it reaches the end of its travel.
So that's a tilt.
That's the tilt,
what about the pan?
The pan, again, fully adjustable. And will rotate a full 360 degrees. It has a slip ring through the middle which all the cables pass through.
Yeah.
Power and video.
A slip ring, for those who don't know, is an electrical contact which can move. So you've got it's normally a brush and a ring, so things can rotate without wires getting in a knot.
Okay, so that's, and there is a third pan and tilt that we saw on the table earlier, controllable via a control box like this, but that one will only go the 270 degrees.
Now you will often leave these unattended, is that right, George? And you put them on some sort of program?
That's right. This one in particular I can leave unattended and it will run throughout the day, 8 hours. That's the length of time I can record onto the hard drive of the camera. And during that time it will go a full travel around and then reverse and go back.
So you're filming during the day. Why have you chosen to do daytime viewing, George? Because most people hunting for UFOs will do nighttime vision.
Oh, well, that's because there are objects up there all the time and they're not visible to the naked eye. They're visible in the infrared spectrum. Apart from orbs, triangular craft that I've captured, there are spiraling creatures, all manner of things up there that you wouldn't normally see unless you view them through the infrared.
Right. All right, and George, well, we're going to have a look at some of what you've captured next, but thanks very much for explaining that. Very impressive. We've looked at some of George's optical equipment and the pan and tilt mechanisms. We're now going to look at some of the footage that he's filmed over the UK. Now, think to bear in mind, these are appearing as very, very small objects, yeah? They're not, you're not going to see some huge spaceship suddenly appear in the middle of the screen. These are filmed from a long distance away. They're all insects,
yes,
yeah?
That's as an example of insects, what they look
Right,
like.
okay. You've had these cameras running all day for many, many days, yeah?
Yes, yes.
And so how have you managed to pick these out then? You just go through it on fast forward, or how do you?
No, I used to go through on fast forward and I would pick some out, but I missed a lot that way.
George has now connected his laptop to the TV screen because he's got some additional clips on the laptop, so we're just looking at those now. What we've got now then, George?
Well, I haven't quite done it yet, Richard.
Right. You need a VGA cable, is it?
Yeah.
Or an HDMI cable?
VGA.
Right. So we're just going to watch this from the YouTube channel, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
See, Mandy likes Christmas.
I didn't think it was your laptop there, George.
No, the pink one.
So you've got these 3 dots which just suddenly whiz across a large portion of the sky,
Yeah.
very, very quickly. They don't seem to come from anywhere. They don't seem. How far away do you think they are, George? What's your...
Well, because I've also captured aircraft, and they seem to be above and beyond the aircraft, which are typically around 20,000 feet.
Right. Thanks very much, and I'm a bit bamboozled by that, but especially the 3 points of light. I think some of it is birds and some of it is insects, but there's a lot which doesn't look like either of those things. So, all right. Well, thanks for showing us all of this today, George. And are you going to? Do you intend to set up the kit here in Wolverhampton?
I do. Yes. I've got a few jobs to do around the house.
Right.
But I do intend to. Next spring is when I should be setting it all up again,
Right.
when the weather improves.
So just remind us what your YouTube channel is if people want to have a look at it again.
1954 Starman, if you search for that,
Right.
you should find my channel.
Right. All right. And if you've got any comments or suggestions, just you can email me at richard@richplanet.net. Right. I'm with another UFO witness now. It's James Westall. Now, you were working in a docks somewhere. Is that right, James?
Near some docks in a warehouse, in a place called Sharpness. It's on the Severn Estuary, overlooking. If you looked across the estuary, you'd be into Forest of Dean, Lindley, that kind of area. I was working nights with 3 people, total people. The guy I was working with, he looked out of the loading bays, and he shouted out, "Well, that plane's coming in a bit low." So I had a look, and all I could see was these lights coming very, very low, straight towards us. So we both went outside to take a look and watch it come across. And the first thing we noticed was it was very quiet. No flashing lights, no warning lights. And it moved very slowly, straight across over the top of us. It would be travelling in a southeasterly
direction. So
Yeah.
that's coming from the Welsh Valleys area, is that right?
Yeah, if you drew a line back, it would be pretty much Abergavenny, Brecon, Beacons, that
Right.
kind of.
All right.
So 3 white lights and 1 red light below and slightly behind the front.
Oh.
I could see nothing through it. I could make out no structure.
Right.
But when it came over us, it started to go out of our view. So I walked out into the yard to take a better look. And as it went up over the warehouse, it banked and turned south.
Right.
And all the lights moved in unison.
Anything more notable about that? I mean,
Just it was silent, very slow, and very bright. Kind of the speed that you'd expect a helicopter to fly over.
Right. All right. But completely silent.
But completely silent. Yeah.
Right. And so, what did you and or your friends put it down to at the time? Did you have an explanation? I mean,
no, I was stumped. I mean, I've seen a few strange things, but that was just I have no idea.
right.
But I've heard about the TR-3B before,
Right.
and it fits that. I was working with a different guy in exactly the same place, and he was outside having a cigarette, and he said, "Oh, that's the space station." So I went and had a look, and it's like, no, that's way too low, way too bright, and very, very similar. But this was 1 ball of white light came across in exactly the same path.
So this is at this warehouse again?
Exactly the same place.
Right.
I can't remember. It was a month or so either side of the one before. So we watched it go over, and it went exactly the same path. Again, went up over the warehouse. So I moved out to the yard to take a look, and to me it seemed to stop and make that movement for a few seconds maybe, and then continued on its way.
So this was just a single
white sphere.
Right.
Let's say a similar height. Maybe.
All right. We have had white spheres witnessed either before or after Black Triangle sightings, which is interesting. I'd like to welcome back today regular contributor David Caton. Welcome back, David.
Thank you, Richard.
Now then, David, since our last work on UFOs and NATO, the film, which you can watch from this link, you had some health problems. Just tell the viewers about that, David.
Yeah. Well, on the 8th of March, I had a sudden severe heart attack and 3 arrests within 45 minutes. And the paramedics were marvellous, and they were here in less than 5 minutes, the first one. So they cut the clothes off and jumped me with the electric defibrillator, and then I went again in the ambulance, and again they took me to the Manchester Royal Infirmary, and I went then, and then they put a stent in, having brought me round. So I was probably technically dead for about no more than a minute each time. Right. So I'm extremely lucky. After Christmas, sometime in January, I'm due to have an alien implant.
Oh, an alien implant.
An ICD.
Right, okay.
Which is an invasive cardiac defibrillator. So if I conk out again, it'll give me a shot.
Right. Well.
So that's. Otherwise, I'm doing well.
Right. Incredible that you've survived that, David. 3 heart attacks and you were technically dead. I mean, so can I ask you, when you were technically dead, any recollection of that? Any sort of?
When I was in the ambulance, just parked outside, it went very quiet and very peaceful. And then because all the rattling of the engine and whatever in the ambulance went. And then the next thing, the crew was sort of shouting at me. Right. When they brought me round, with another jump start.
You just know that it was quiet and peaceful. You weren't in any distress at all or anything like that?
No. The trouble is, the pearly gates, they're so busy up there, there's a massive queue. And I was only 10 from the gates when they brought me back again.
Okay. All right, well, at least you're still with us, David. That's the main thing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now, on to the grim research of David Caton now. Because David's been researching the phenomenon of animal mutilation, a much misunderstood subject, and he's been delving into that, since the mid-late 90s?
97, I think.
1997. Yeah. Now, people have tried to explain this phenomenon in conventional terms. Just explain why you think none of the conventional explanations really fit the evidence.
Yeah, well, the common one is, of course, predation by another wild animal. And that means that animal's got to bring down and kill or somehow keep the target still, which is a difficulty in itself. And often there's wounds, like dogs attack or a leopard or whatever it might be, a big cat. So that would be a big difficulty, and there will be evidence that a predator's attacked it. But lots of these injuries, there's no way that they could do what they do. And
a lot of people then suggest, well, it must be the military or some secret pharmaceutical company or whatever doing some sort of environmental testing. You don't buy that, do you?
No. I mean, it's so widespread, and the logistics of any military organisation, whether it be the Army, Navy and Air Force, whichever country, they would not have enough qualified personnel, like veterinary surgeons or people to go around to every little field in every corner of the globe.
Yeah. Some of the locations they're just extremely out of the way. It's just,
but I mean, they wouldn't bother anyway, just for the odd sheep and the odd lamb, which have got the same telltale thing. So logistically, any military organisation could not cope with having the right equipment and personnel and the technique of doing this.
But I don't think anyone's come up with any direct evidence from a military project.
If they were doing that, they wouldn't do it overtly, they'd do it covertly. They would go to a market or do a deal from the farmer or the landowner, buy so many animals, take them to some secret establishment, do the business, and then incinerate the carcass. They wouldn't return to the place that they stole them from and risk being caught twice.
Yes.
And upsetting the farmer if he's done a deal. That wouldn't make sense, would it?
Right, now people will say, well, why isn't this reported in our media if this kind of strange thing is going on? Well, it kind of is, but it's always not reported correctly. And a good example of that was the Mail Online and the Sun newspaper that reported on a case that we investigated in 2010 of a mutilated horse. Yeah. And they just said, it's a knife slasher. And if you look at the photographs, which did not appear in the mainstream media, but you can go to my website and have a look at them, it's clearly not a knife slasher. There's rectal core, there's a very precise jaw strip, there's wounds with extremely clean edges.
The Sussex police got the post-mortem report from the National Veterinary College in Potters Bar. Though they denied us a copy, they denied the horse owner a copy. Mm-hmm. And I rang the Royal Veterinary College 3 times and said, oh, you're not the owner and you can't have a report. So the horse owner's vet was an intermediary with getting the bill paid, which they tried to pass back to the horse owner, which was very annoying. Mm-hmm. So I think in the end the police paid the bill. They leaked, there was a press release from a female officer, and it was mentioned briefly that there was an internal organ removal. In other words, things that we could not see. No,
it said internal injuries, David, it said, I think.
Okay, internal injuries, yeah, okay, but I read that as there was probably removal of other organs, which we couldn't identify from looking externally.
Now, you've been doing further research into more strange animal deaths pertaining to sea creatures.
Yes. Well, in February, preceding that, I actually ended up putting pen to paper and produced this assessment report.
This is a 34-page report written by David, and it's entitled RETs Guilty of Mutilating Sea Mammals, and you can download it from the Rich Planet website from the link on the screen there.
I thought it was worth a mention that Tony Dodd was contacted by a Scottish RSPCA inspector over the winter of 1991-92, because I think this is relevant to what we found more recently. And what was baffling the veterinary people up in Scotland, and we talk about the Orkney Islands, on the 3 adjacent beaches they found 30 decapitated grey seals, and no heads are found. And what was baffling them particularly, they were bloodless as well, of course, there was no evidence of any activity on the beach by anybody, military or otherwise. And all the cuts through the neck, through the vertebrae, were made from the same joint. Now they could only examine the remaining side of the joint, if you like, because the head was missing. But what they noticed, there was no physical damage or marks onto the bone, which could have been caused by a blade of somebody wielding a hatchet or a saw or whatever.
Even if you sedated them, you'd still need some sort of radiography to cut right through that vertebrae, wouldn't you?
Because you've got a thick neck and the blubber, so obviously from the outside you cannot see the vertebrae and the joints in the bone.
Now, we are going to show some photographs of mutilated seals and sea creatures and perhaps other animals as well. So if that's something that you don't want to see, then please switch over now. It goes back to, what, 2008, is it?
Yes, roughly speaking, yes. So I was intrigued by a lot of reports, a lot of seal mutilations, particularly off the Norfolk coast, Blakeney Point. And the media were waking up to this fact, because seals, like horses and ponies, are very much in the public psyche, and people get more upset than seals being wounded and mutilated than, say, a sheep or lamb even. And, well, first of all, the police, there was a Chief Inspector Brown who was in charge of the case, if you like, and the seals were sort of on National Trust property, although there were some further away up the east coast of Scotland, the Tay Estuary, etc. But the majority were off the Norfolk coast and were on the beaches around Blakeney Point, which is a reserve run by the National Trust. So a lady in the National Trust and Steve Brown were very helpful to me, and they sent me quite a few pictures and photographs. The MMO took over after a while investigating the whole business. And the police officer, Inspector Michael Brown, when I was talking to him for more information, he was quite cross and apologetic and said, I can't give you any more images or information because the MMO have taken over.
Right.
Now the MMO is a branch of DEFRA.
Right, right.
And I think that they clocked probably what the cause was and wanted to control, you know, any more information or more incidents. And I recognised immediately the telltale signs, if you like, of the wounds, which looked to me very much like animals. So I concluded if most land-based animals we've looked at before are mutilated regularly with the same modus operandi, it seemed reasonable to me that sea mammals, particularly the larger ones like seals and dolphins, whales, would similarly be of interest to
whoever is doing it, right?
Yes.
So starting in 2008, we've got seals start appearing on the east coast of the UK, and this is from St Andrews down the east coast to Norfolk. It's not just Norfolk, is it?
No, there were quite a number up
with
the Tay estuary.
Give us a summary of the sort of numbers, David, in terms of...
Well, off the Norfolk coast, they ended up something like 75.
And this is spanned over what time period?
From 2010 to 11, basically,
right.
So about 12 months, but most of them in the autumn when they're breeding. And one of the significant things is that they noticed, both from the Scottish ones and the Norfolk ones, there were a majority of females, and particularly pregnant ones, were targeted. They also were pretty sure that they'd been killed close to the shore in shallow water and then got washed onto the beach. I ended up over a period of about 3 years liaising with a veterinary surgeon that was at an RSPCA depot called East Winch, which is near King's Lynn, and his name's Steve Bexton, and he ended up doing post-mortems on 11 of the seals, strange wounds, and strange, what intrigued everybody, and particularly the media, with these very odd spiralling cuts starting from the left lower jaw, going round to the body, just deep enough, in most cases of those, just to take the outer skin, the blubber, and a bit of muscle. But there were other seals which had different wounds, which they were, you know, cut from the head to the middle of the body, and there were not all these spiralling wounds. The interesting things at the back, that looks to me like a perfect circular hole, which really looks like an anal core. Here's another picture of a seal, which you can put up, and the skin is cut away, but it's the edge of the skin there. Has a similar effect that we've seen many times on other animals, where you look at the skin edge, or there's a flap of skin being removed. We've seen it on sheep in Shropshire and elsewhere. Phil Hoyle's identified. So that, and again, around the body, there's a very neat circular junction between the outer skin and tissue beneath.
Right.
So I think that's significant.
So
and then up in Scotland, there's another organisation called SMRU, the Sea Mammal Research Unit, and Steve was one of the final authors of 5 on the report of all the seals, particularly because he'd post-mortem 11 of them. And their conclusion was that what they were trying to point to was a propeller motor attached to some vessel, or even an oil or gas rig, which was shrouded, and I think they call them azimuth motors, and
shrouded propeller of some sort.
and the seals had been somehow sucked into the confined space of the shrouded prop, hence the spiralling cuts from the blade. And he said it was a blunt cut, it wasn't a knife cut. And he said many times that the blubber on the lab, you know, when he's doing a post-mortem with the scalpels and sharp net blades, is very hard to cut into. And he said there was a massive shearing force applied, but they've never found, despite advertising and contacting people who do dredging, work on rigs or whatever, any vessel that said, well, yeah, we've had this problem.
In that report, they do list some potential causes, and I don't think they rule them all out, but they say, well, it could be, you know, I don't know, fishermen. It could be, as you say, shrouded propellers. It could be this, it could be that. But that's the one that they put the emphasis on. They say it is very most likely this. Now, you've been in touch with Bexton, Steve Bexton, extensively, and or quite a lot of email contact, and he's done the post-mortems. Now, from your opinion of speaking to him, does he know what's causing it?
No. The photographs I sent him, there was a case on Filey Beach, which I'll mention shortly. I sent him images to look at and make comment on in view of his work on the 11 carcasses he'd done the work on. And he had to say, because it's very difficult to come to a firm decision just looking at photographs.
Right.
And to be fair, it's the same for me. So there's an element of doubt. But he actually sent me some images he had on file, which was similar to the Filey seal. And what he says about predation is correct in some cases. He says when an animal's injured, like a seal, they usually sink to the bottom of the ocean. It's not at great depth, which means that because they were killed local to the shore, that contradicts the idea that they were sucked into props of vessels which are far further out in deeper water. And on any rigs round the Norfolk coast weren't even built and up and running at the time of these injuries anyway. But going back to the predators, he said crabs are the main culprits. So if the outer tough skin and blubber is exposed by some injury, then the crabs attack that area, devour it, interfere with it. And then when they get onto the beach, seagulls particularly peck away at the flesh. Now, I don't disagree or what he says in many cases, but it didn't quite fit these particular injuries to me. It was too much of a coincidence. And even the ones he sent me, which are in this report, show, you know, a sort of replication of the same spherical cuts in the body and around the anal area, and the heads are often stripped completely down to the neck, so there's just a bare skull of the seal, and there's no brain, there's no evidence of holes in the skull for the brain to be removed. And I think that previously, where they've decapitated seals and the head's missing entirely, they're interested in examining the brain tissue, looking for the effects of pollutants. So I searched the internet and found that there were plenty of research establishments, some involved with the drug industry or whatever, who are monitoring the effects of pollutions in the sea. So you get runoff from the rivers, from the farmers' fields, from fertilisers and chemicals, and then you've got people discharging into the ocean who are into plastics manufacturing. So there's a level of, fairly high level of PCBs. And the sea creatures, like shrimps and krill, and then up the chain to seals, the seals are consuming all these fish and animals which are polluted by the polluted water and the chemicals. And seals, they found, particularly grey seal, have a higher concentration of these PCBs, etc., in the blubber.
Right.
And it's interesting, it's the blubber, the liver,
Yeah.
and the brain can be affected.
Right.
And they live for a long time,
Right.
seals, like 30 years. So,
Right. They
and
live
then
for 30.
we eat the fish, the human being eats the fish, and as we do.
I think what you're trying to say, David, is that the seal is at the top of the food chain.
It is. In the oceans, it's pretty well at the top.
So if you were going to sample everything that's going on, you would go to the top of the food chain. Now, you mentioned the spiral cuts, and we'll just put on the screen this fascinating image. Clearly, I don't think anyone could argue that the injury on that animal has been done by another animal. A perfect spiral cut to quite a specific depth, which sort of goes around the circumference of the seal twice by the look of it, along its body. I think you'd have to say that's some sort of mechanical device. Would you agree, David?
Yes. Well, Steve Bexton and people up at the SMR review, which is up in Scotland, they looked at some of the same, and they all mutually agreed that some mechanical device had made those cuts.
And you don't think they've come up with, or they've found the thing that's causing it?
No, no.
Because if they did find a ducted propeller, it would be fairly straightforward to measure the pitch of the blades and the size of the blades and see whether that seal could fit into such a ducted propeller. But they've not come up with any device that fits that injury.
Plus the fact you've got to consider that all different ages of seal, including young ones, have got the same injury. So that would mean that you've got to have a multifarious amount of sizes of these ducted props to fit tightly, to constrain the animal while the blade rotated to if you like, hack out or gouge out the skin and the blubber. So,
I mean, you would have thought as well, if they're getting caught up in a ducted propeller, that one or two of them might get stuck in the ducted propeller and get taken out. And we see a photograph of one.
Because it would obviously, if that happened, jam the motor, it would seriously disrupt the operation of what they were doing, and they would have to send divers down or whatever to extract the animal, wouldn't they? To clear it, and then they would say, "Ah, look at this poor thing. This is what's caused the problem." But nobody's come forward with another body from a vessel of any sort to offer it to the authorities to examine. So done extensive inquiries, obviously, and then again, these things would have been going on for a long time.
There was none on the East Coast prior to 2008. Is that right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right.
But in 2008, they were in Newfoundland, in Canada, off an island called Sable Island.
Right.
And Channel 5 did a documentary on this called Seal Rippers.
Yeah, according to them, it was all been done by sharks. Yeah.
It was a particular Arctic green shark or something.
Yeah.
Now, Steve Bexton and his colleagues at the SMRU were absolutely adamant, because they'd watched that documentary.
Right.
We don't have that shark in our shallow and warm coastal waters around the British Isles. And he said also the injuries that they showed on the film were inconsistent with the shark, doing it.
But were the injuries similar to the ones on the east coast of the UK?
No.
Right, so different injuries as well?
Yeah. They were just chew marks, where a shark had obviously chewed away at an area and they tossed them about.
Right. So the documentary is not really bringing forward the best unexplained evidence?
No, the producers wanted to, in the end, they were looking for an explanation, and the best thing they could come up with was this Arctic green shark.
You see, this is the thing with mainstream television. I'm just going to make this point, David. They will not make a programme unless they've got an explanation so everyone can go to sleep at night.
Yeah, that's it. That's quite right. They've got to have a neat conclusion.
So they can't have anything being unexplained because they know everything.
They say that's a wrap. We've wrapped it up. That's the idea.
And it always ends with that conclusion. They can't make a programme which doesn't have
leave an open-ended question.
Like what the hell's going on?
Extraterrestrials. I've little doubt on that myself. So I think that they're examining everything on Earth.
Right.
And I think it's important, and I've often thought from way back when I started researching the animal problem, that it was some sort of health check on Earth creatures, which was of concern, I'd like to think, but interest to their agendas of what they're doing with planet Earth and the inhabitants on Earth, including the ecology, and particularly the bad things we've doing to pollute the atmosphere, the water and the land with all our man-made products are having a detrimental effect.